I think we fixed it. Are we good? Is everybody with me? Does anybody have me? Is anybody here with me? Can anybody hear me? Is there anybody out there? Is there sign of human life, human intelligence at any point in this universe that we are somehow trapped in here together, all of us, that we were in for the first 6 minutes or so of this stream? I think that you should be able to hear me. I'm very certain. In fact, I'm very confident that you should be able to hear me at this point in time. There we are. Thank you very much, Dan Vasquez. Okay, everybody, welcome one and all. It is our Dallas Cowboys postgame show here in the Bleacher Report app, the very best app in the world of sports. Make sure you download the app. You can keep track of all your favorite sports teams. For me and you, that unfortunately includes the Dallas Cowboys, but thankfully for me, that includes my Arizona State Sun Devils. Forks up, baby. Big 12 champions. At least one of my teams knows how to win at AT&T Stadium, but we're not here to discuss that. We are here for our postgame show. You have me for 30 minutes despite our technical issues. Daryl SB 1978 says firewall issues. Maybe, you know what, if only it had been something like I was trapped on mute. You know what I mean? If only it had been something like that. Maybe it is a firewall. Maybe it's something disastrous. Maybe it's something who knows what. But thankfully, we're here for a half hour to discuss the disaster that was at the very end of this game for the Dallas Cowboys. If you want to follow me, by the way, on social media, you can do so. Twitter, Instagram, Threads at RJ Ochoa, TikTok, Archie.Ochoa. I don't know my Blue Sky handle. I keep saying that. I'm not going to learn it. I'm there, though, if you want to hang out with me. Make sure to check out bloggingtheboys.com for the latest and greatest. I've got several articles up already. We can take a look at a few of them. Dan Vasquez, thank you, by the way, to all of you who powered through in the chat while I was figuring out my audio issues. We will put this up on the Blogging the Boys YouTube channel after the fact, and they won't see it because I'll cut that off. But you guys are the real heroes. Alexis Aguirre 24 says, mute the whole season. I wish we could. But Dan Vasquez says, RG, we all had hope because we are Cowboys fans, but the reality is, as football fans, this team was not going anywhere, even if we won out. Change is needed. Much needed. Now, I have a lot of thoughts on this, as you can imagine. And I think we have to start with what happened at the very end, the Amani Oruwariye situation. To put it lightly, actually, a quick break in that. Mike McCarthy's at the podium right now. Mike didn't get word that, you and I were struggling to get off the ground here. And Mike said that DeMarvion Overshown's injury is, quote, of a serious nature, that it didn't look good. So that is just, horrible on top of all of this. On the Amani Oruwariye play, I've seen a lot of you chatting about Jason Garrett in the chat. And look, the Mike McCarthy era may be over in a month or whatever it is. Let's see, what is exactly it? But a month from now is possible. In no universe are we going to compare the Mike McCarthy era to the Jason Garrett era. All right, and I'm not going to waste time on this because it would be a waste of time. But and I'm not saying let's throw Mike McCarthy a parade, but Mike McCarthy has accomplished scores, light years more than what Jason Garrett did. So I'm not here to fight for Mike McCarthy in any way, stretch, or form. But to compare him to Jason Garrett is just being a prisoner of the moment. Now, we can be prisoners of the moment in certain ways, but we can be, fair and objective ones at the very least. That's all I ask of you. I see UC Davis 115 says, do you remember Anthony Brown's blunder from the Thanksgiving Day from years ago? You're merging memories, C Davis 115, and this has been popping up on Twitter at this point, in the aftermath of the game. And this did happen to the Cowboys, this Amani Oruwariye situation against the Denver Broncos in 2021. So that did happen. But the Thanksgiving memory that you're, again, merging, because this has happened before, and the most infamous sort of occasion of it, I would say still probably most infamous, was Leon Lett doing it on Thanksgiving Day in 1993. Incidentally, Troy Aikman and Joe Buck spoke about the hole in the roof at Texas Stadium so God could watch his favorite team play. That's been discussed many different times. It snowed that day at Texas Stadium, one of the very few times it ever snowed in the building. And Leon Lett pounced on a ball. It was not a blocked punt the way it was after Nick Vigil blocked this punt. It was a blocked field goal, but same exact situation. And it's a very, very commonly understood thing. Peter, don't touch this. Don't touch the ball. Nobody get near it. Nobody whatsoever. So there's no way to say it. And I don't think that we have to be mean about this. We don't have to be rude. I don't even really want to offer any jokes about this. This is just, I feel really badly for Amani Oruwariye on a human level. I feel really badly for him. And I have not seen anything yet about my fellow Bleacher Report content creator, the president, Micah Parsons. but Micah storming off at the very end. Now we fully understand, right? We can all put ourselves in that situation, in that boat, in that spot, and say, yeah, that would probably be really upsetting. That would piss us off after we had just fought and scratched and clawed to get the ball back, to just have it thrown away like that. That would be very, very unsettling. So I haven't seen that explained anywhere. But Amani Oruwariye is going to be dealing with a lot of, criticism, obviously. And I saw a lot of you in the chat, and look, go off. I'm not here to police you how you want to act as a fan. If you want to say whatever you want to say, then go for it. But it is a really, 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 really big mistake. I mean, like, we're talking, and this is a few weeks ago, after the Cowboys won at Washington, the first of their 2-game winning streak, the streak that did not grow tonight. We came here in the Bleacher Report postgame show, and we did not have technical issues. But the very first thing that I said, that I discussed, was how, at the very end, how Wanye Thomas should have gone down after he recovered the onside kick attempt from Washington, right? And a lot of you said, oh, man, blah, 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 let him have fun, this and that, whatever. And my whole point was, well, that's something that John Fossil should say, right? Like, that's something John Fossil should have told the kickoff, the hands team, and said, okay, if you get the ball, just go down. That's the whole point. And I say that to say John Fossil has to be drilling this into people. And the fact that this happened in 2021, and that we just discussed that, obviously, and the fact that the Cowboys have had several whoopsie-daisies like this on special teams, not just this season. This is a John Fossil kind of characteristic at this point in time, and I want to say there's a lot of good that comes with that. John Fossil's aggression, really, the Cowboys special teams group has become really dynamic under John Fossil, but it also has a propensity to have a little bit of like, what the hell are you doing, man? And we've seen 2 of those instances in the last 3 weeks. Again, you may not have an issue with Wanye Thomas returning the onside kick attempt for a touchdown at Washington, but it was technically the incorrect thing to do. Obviously, Amani touching the punt, it was and there's nothing. I mean, unlike the Wanye Thomas thing, that you could at least sit here and say, well, he wants to score, and he's putting points on the board, whatever. You can somewhat defend that, not to me, because I'm not going to hear that. But this is indefensible. You can't defend this in any way, shape, or form. It is a horrible, 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 horrible mistake. As C. Davis 115 says, it's literally fundamentals taught in middle school and even Pee Wee football. This is something, and people make this joke all the time, but look, I'm 35 years old. I don't know how old each and every one of you are, but if you're around my age, this is something we say a lot. Like, coaches, you should play Madden. Like, you should play Madden just to kind of understand this. Because this is something that even if you play Madden, you understand the rules. You know that these kinds of bad things can happen. And so this was, and do we believe that Cooper Rush was going to go take the lead? I don't know, but I think it was definitely more possible that Cooper Rush was going to lead a game-winning drive that the Cowboys could have won ultimately 23-20, as opposed to what happened. I mean, it is an inexcusable mistake, and part of it is a result of obviously the circumstances surrounding this team, what with how they're dealing with so many injuries and whatnot. But it is really ironic that the first time we really get to see Trayvon Diggs and Deron Bland and Jordan Lewis play together, we get that group, that threesome all together as tried and true starters. It's ironic that on that night, somebody else who got some playing time while they were all out made the kind of play of the game in Amani Oruwariye that ultimately swung the game and lost the game for the Cowboys. Is it fair to say that he lost the game for the Cowboys? No. Is it wrong? Also, no. I mean, I think it is fair to say that moment lost the game for the Cowboys. It felt like they were going to do something to win. And a lot of you said this in the chat already. And again, thank you for powering through this with me. I mean, I think that they played well enough to win. Alexis in the chat says, I'm going to give you a fire emoji. He says, defense played lights out, considering Red Hot Bengals offense just needed some more big plays out of Cooper Rush. I don't even think that Cooper played poorly. I think that what we saw from Cooper Rush was Cooper Rush, right? Like, that's just what this was, right? Like, this was if, like the Formula One season is over, but if I showed up to the Formula, like if I showed up to Abu Dhabi in like a Mustang GT, like, that's my fault, right? Like, I'm not expecting to win this race. And so that's what happened. Like, Cooper Rush was the Mustang GT in this particular instance. So you know what you're getting. You know that you have to obviously capitalize on moments with Cooper Rush. And I feel like the Cowboys did that. Now, the penultimate possession, or the possession before the punt that went awry for the Cowboys, Rico Dowdle gets the ball on the first touch. He rips off 14 yards. Awesome. Mike, now we're cooking with gas, buddy. Let's go. We're here at the, like, those crazy grills, like, where they're just cooking in front of you and all the fire and stuff like that. That's what it looked like we were about to uncork. But then what does Mike McCarthy do? And I would defend Mike. I really would. I would love to sit here and defend Mike McCarthy because I think he did a solid job. But after that, he goes to the Cooper Rush well. Dude, It's a Mustang GT in a Formula One race. You cannot, after Rico Dowdle rips off 14 yards on the first play, throw it 3 different times with Cooper Rush at your side. That's just never going to work. Not one single time is that ever going to be something that totally and completely works for you. And that Mike McCarthy still doesn't understand that this many games into Cooper Rush is really frustrating. Let's take a look at this situation, 27-20. And I know it's kind of frustrating, but also kind of not frustrating, because there are some of you, some of us who want the Cowboys to lose, who want them to tank, whatever, blah, blah, blah. If that's who you are, then you got what you wanted. But in this game, 31 attempts for Cooper Rush. I'm sorry, and I mean this with nothing but love and respect. There's no need. I don't need to see Cooper Rush throw this ball 31 times. You know what number I need to see be larger? Rico Dowdle had 18 carries for $131. Rico Dowdle had 18 carries and averaged over 7 yards a carry. I'm going to look this up while I'm here with you, because I don't think that has happened all too often. If I go to in fact, I'll show you as I look this up, because I am this flabbergasted by this. This is unreal what Rico Dowdle did. Let's go to our friends at StatHead here. We're looking for a single game, and we're looking for rushing attempts. What did we say Rico had? He had what did Rico have? He had 18 attempts, and he had over 7.3 yards per carry. 18 attempts is our number here that we're going for Rico Dowdle. So at least 18. And average yards per rushing attempt, 7.3. How many times has this happened recently? I'm going to guess not many, because this is going to be a list of like Saquon Barkley. Goodness gracious, I can't, let me get myself squared away here. This is, what are you doing? Why is Cooper Rush your plan when Rico Dowdle is playing like this? And I'll be clear, I'll be straight up. I don't believe in Rico Dowdle this much, but the results kind of speak for themselves. I don't know how you can expect, anybody to do anything legitimate. If you're handicapping yourself this way, okay, we've got the data in front of us here. Let's take a look. So these are the last instances of this happening. Again, our thresholds here are 18 carries at least in a game and at least 7.3 yards per carry. This has happened twice this season, 2 times. It was Saquon Barkley in a win for the. Look at all these. These are all wins. Look at all of these are wins. You see all these W. The last time a team did what Rico Dowdle just did and lost the game was Adrian Peterson in 2012, December of 2012. Man, it was almost to the day. It was December 2nd, 2012. In fact, amazingly, Adrian Peterson lost that game to Mike McCarthy's Green Bay Packers. I don't know if you can see all that on your screen. I know it kind of shrinks things when let me do this here. The game we're talking about here, the last loss, and again, the thresholds that we're looking at, what Rico Dowdle reached, 18 carries for 7.3 yards per carry. The last time this happened in a single game where an NFL player met these 2 thresholds and his team lost the game was over 12 years ago. It was Adrian Peterson in his MVP winning season of 2012. So you're talking about something that the league MVP did. And amazingly, in case you didn't see it a little while ago, you can now very visibly see it on your screen. I've highlighted it there for you. This happened against Mike McCarthy. So he has been involved in the last 2 losses that this kind of performance has seen. So as much as I want to sit here and defend Mike McCarthy potentially, holy crap, by the way, Adrian Peterson did it again 2 weeks later. Man alive, he was special that year. This is a pretty indefensible thing to me, to think you have to lean on Cooper Rush when Rico Dowdle is running like that. This has happened twice this season. You're going to see this. Obviously, you won't see it right now because the game just happened. But tomorrow, when I tweet this out, because I'm going to tweet it today and I'm going to tweet it tomorrow, you're going to see Rico Dowdle's name on here. And it's going to be on there with Saquon Barkley and Derrick Henry. Look at the types of performances that have yielded, the types of players. And again, look at win. The last 40 times this has happened where a player has met these thresholds. His team has won. Of the last 54 instances where a player has met these thresholds, his team has won 53 times. It is criminal from Mike McCarthy to just ignore what Rico Dowdle is doing. I see you, Alexis Aguirre says, especially with a makeshift offensive line. Kudos to Rico. Seriously, I mean, like, Rico Dowdle's doing this with Brock Hoffman playing center and TJ Basson at left guard. I mean, what? How is that possible, man? Like, seriously. And I said it 5 minutes ago. I don't believe in Rico Dowdle that much. I really, or at least I didn't. I'm definitely forced to change my perspective on things a little bit here based on what we saw. And don't even get me started on how the Cowboys suppressed this player for 6 months or whatever it's been at this point in time, for a year and a half at this point in time. I mean, the reality is that Rico Dowdle is legitimately in line to, I think, receive a contract extension from this team, but we don't trust them to handle that in any way, shape, or form. And by the way, while we're here on this subject, ESPN, what the hell are you doing? Now, for anyone who missed this, okay, the Cowboys' offensive line, as Alexis pointed out here, is it Alexis or Alex YS? I'm not certain. I think it's Alexis, so apologies if I'm completely and totally mispronouncing this. But so the Cowboys are dealing with a number of injuries along the offensive line. We all know this. If you've been paying attention for 5 minutes, you know this. If you've been paying attention for a decade now, you know that people, your friends, your family, your coworkers, whoever, they regard the Dallas Cowboys to be the best offensive line in the NFL. Why do they think that? Because they were the best offensive line in the NFL 10 years ago. And apparently that's what ESPN thinks, because at one point in this game, I'm not lying, I'm not making it up, this seriously happened. Joe Buck and Troy Aikman were talking about the injuries that the Cowboys offensive line was experiencing. Cool, I'm with you, respect. Let's apply some context here. And then they showed a graphic that showed the week 1 starting offensive lineman for the Dallas Cowboys. And that would make sense, right? If they did that this year, if they said, well, here were the starting 5 up in Cleveland, and look how different, look at the number of amalgamations they've had ever since then. That would make sense. I would totally understand why you would do something like that. That's not what they did. What they did was show the week 1 starting offensive line for the Dallas Cowboys from 2016. What? Show me any team's starting offensive line from 2016 relative to who they are now. And I promise you, it's going to be a little different. I mean, it was a weird move. Obviously, if you follow the Cowboys, you know that sometimes they could be prone to some weird coverage because people are really stretching to try to force their particular narrative on us, because that's what happens when it comes to the Dallas Cowboys. But that was a very, very weird thing. Jerome Tillman in the chat says, only Jerry Jones can fix this. This is embarrassing. No excuses. You do not lose a game like that. I am not going to put the word only for Jerry Jones at all. If you want to do that, Jerome, be my guest. I wish you well, but I am not going to assign my confidence in anything to Jerry Jones, because I know, look, and I think that kind of takes us to where we're at here, right? Like, we all had kind of put, Woody down for a little while, right? Like Buzz came in. It was really fun. Like, oh man, they wanted Washington. Oh man, Kevontae Turpin had his first kickoff return for a touchdown. Oh, man, the Commanders missed the extra point. Oh, man, look at how stupid Dan Quinn is, right? Like, we had a lot of fun with that. And then it was, oh, man, these guys won on Thanksgiving. And then they won on Thanksgiving, and we got to kind of step back, right? We got to go play outside, right? Go on the swing and the slide and whatnot. And we got to watch a lot of college football. I mentioned it, Forks Up. And we kind of got to forget a little bit, right? Like, we kind of got to, separate and the sun shone after the cool weather, you know what I mean? Like, it was all good. And then these dudes come back in our lives and we're like, oh yeah, we hate you. And you seem to hate us, because why else would you act this way? And I say all that, and it seems unfair too, because this team did play hard, but the things that they did wrongly on Monday night against Cincinnati are pretty unforgivable to me, and pretty stupid and pretty ridiculous, because again, how are you veering away from Rico Dowdle when he's playing the way that he is? Why is CeeDee Lamb not more involved? Why are you depending on Cooper Rush? The only answer that makes any kind of logical sense is that you're in on the tank. And if you are, cool. I'm not going to lose sleep over that, but at least tell us, because if this is you trying to win, then my goodness, like I'm having a very difficult time defending that. In a lot of ways. I don't see a Mike McCarthy quote. So this is a tweet from Nick Harris, the Fort Worth Star-Telegram, says Cowboys cornerback Amani Oruwariye was visibly down at his locker after the game. Fellow corner and special teamer CJ Goodwin stepped in and declined comment on Oruwariye touching the blocked punt. He was escorted out by 4 special teamers. And then Nick adds that Dallas is putting their arms around him. That is really nice, and that is really good. And I understand that for some people, that will feel annoying. That will feel like whatever to you. But that is a really cool thing to see the Cowboys teammates kind of rallying for Oruwariye. And I don't put that on him. All right, I'm not going to put that on him. The same way I don't completely put the Wanye Thomas thing on him. I put that on John Fossil because, again, twice now, I'll say this point again, twice as CUS Master Flash says it was a mistake, it happens. I'm totally with you. And you would think, excuse me, that after the Wanye Thomas thing, and again, I'm not trying to just harp on that because I understand that some of you don't feel like that was a mistake, but I'm telling you in a literal way, in a by the book way, it was a mistake. It may be a mistake that you're willing to overlook, but it's important to understand that it was a mistake. And it's important to understand that because this is now twice in a 3-game span where the Dallas Cowboys special teams have made a fundamental mistake. This isn't a weird mistake. This isn't a complicated thing. This isn't a difficult to grasp thing. This is basic, fundamental 101 level knowledge and assignments that John Fossil is not necessarily drilling into his players in the proper way. Again, we can exonerate Wanye Thomas. We can certainly exonerate Amani Oruwariye and feel for him and acknowledge that it's not his fault because it isn't his fault. This is John Fossil's fault. This is John Fossil's fault in the same way it was John Fossil's fault 2 weeks ago, in the same way it was John Fossil's fault when he hung on with Greg Zuerlein and compared him to Michael Jordan and Tiger Woods and all that stupid crap that happened a couple of years ago. That really didn't happen, by the way. I'm not making that up. This is John Fossil's fault. And he should be the one. And he'll come out and he'll have an emotional outburst and an emotional defense. And it will, tug at some of our heartstrings. But this is multiple mistakes. And that's why I maintain that Mike McCarthy, and I'll give a serious amount of kudos to Mike Zimmer because I've talked a lot of crap about him. But Mike McCarthy and Mike Zimmer, they have fought a respectable fight. And I think that they have made a legitimate type of lemonade. If this were chopped, this is one of those where you're like, man, that looks pretty good. Like, I don't think they should win, but I would definitely eat that. I think that that's how Mike McCarthy and Mike Zimmer are handling this. And I give them my highest salute, my highest level of kudos. But when these kinds of mistakes are happening, it's too much. When these kinds of things are happening, there's an infection. When these kinds of things are happening, you have to move on. And that's why I started this thing after the technical error. Once again, love you all. I'm going to rewind the clock. And I'm going to rewind the clock almost 5 years at this point in time. It was the early days of 2020 before the whole, obviously, world shut down. It was, obviously the Cowboys, for anyone who doesn't remember, I'll just get to the point. The Cowboys missed the playoffs in 2019. And they waited the whole week after. The whole week. Again, I don't lie to you. I promise you. I told you that I had some technical issues earlier. I am always straight up with you. All right. They waited. Look this up if you don't believe me, though, because I understand sometimes, it sounds good, bro. You got to look it up. Anyway, they waited a whole week after that 2019 season ended before making a decision on Jason Garrett. A whole week. They let a whole week burn without making a decision while other teams were interviewing candidates. And then they were very firm in the language that they did not fire Jason Garrett, that they simply did not renew his contract. Okay. Now, if you want to believe that put them behind the proverbial 8 ball relative to other candidates who were in that cycle, that included Joe Judge at the time, that included Ron Rivera, that included Kevin Stefanski. If you believe that was a hindrance to them, then I'm not going to disagree with that. But my point is they waited, they dragged their feet, which is a symptom that we have seen plague itself over and over and over and over again in different sectors and different facets of team and roster construction relative to this team, this organization, whether it's the actual roster or the coaching staff. They waited a whole week. They let it burn up. And then they interviewed Mike McCarthy and they interviewed Marvin Lewis. And I'm not going to sit here and point fingers, but Marvin Lewis's interview did satisfy the Rooney Rule, and that was it. And then they hired Mike McCarthy. All right. They cannot take that same approach with Mike McCarthy. This season's going to end mercifully, finally, in less than a month at this point in time, less than a month. And you got a Monday after. You got a Monday after Mike McCarthy's gone. There's got to be there's got to be flights happening on Tuesday, man. You got to be zooming with Ben Johnson as he's on his bye, or if they're in the wild card round. I mean, you have to be moving and grooving and shaking and baking because this whole thing isn't working anymore. You have proven that over and over and over again. The faces can change, the coaches can change, the players can change. The only thing that doesn't change is the amount of water bottles with Dak Prescott. Holy crap, what is going on, Dak? But that being said, you have to just get to the root of this and wipe it away and move on. So to answer, I see you, Mr. Landry says, tied to the whole staff. S. Master Flash says, would you bring Mike back? I think that Mike McCarthy has earned a fair look. I really do. I maintain that he is the best coach this team has had in the drought. That's not necessarily saying a lot, but it is the truth of the matter. And I think if this was a court of law and you were paying me, I think I could make a logical argument on his behalf. I really do. I think I could. I think if you heard that argument in an objective sense, I think you'd go, damn, RJ raises some pretty good points and he's pretty handsome. I know. That being said, I still think you got to move on. I think you do. And that's an emotional decision, certainly. And it's crazy to say that because if Amani Oruwariye just gets the hell out of the way, then maybe we don't feel that way. But that's kind of the thing, man. Like at this point in time, you keep having these things. You keep having these whoopsies. You keep having these whatsies. And it's not even the Amani Oruwariye thing. As we discussed, it's the Rico Dowdle thing. It's the Rico Dowdle, that you suppressed him for as long as you did, that you didn't utilize him, that you tried to make Zeke Elliott a thing who only steps on the field and gains a yard if you're lucky at this point in time, and that you're still carrying Zeke. I mean, what happened to football being a meritocracy? The fact that I know that wasn't Mike McCarthy, but the fact that you let that speech happen in the first place is an example of how it isn't a meritocracy around your parts. I mean, so is it unfair to Mike McCarthy to say he's got to go because he's he's one piece of this overall infection? Yeah, it's unfair. But I mean, this is our football team. And I mean, by ours, I mean, it is our team, all of us around here. And so I think that's what's best. And it's a hard decision. It's an unfair decision. It's an emotional decision. But man, and I really do love that Dak Prescott and even Troy Aikman are kind of vouching for Mike McCarthy publicly. I loved what Dak told Yahoo Sports about how, it would be nice to see Mike McCarthy have a shot on his terms. I agree with that. But I'm not willing to risk any more of this on that potential. I think, and I will say that I need to understand, who the candidates are potentially before I'm saying I'm willing to move on, because there is the whole bird in the hand is better than two in the bush type thing. So if we're moving on from Mike McCarthy to bring in like Mike Vrabel, like what's the point? You know what I mean? And so, but at this point, I think I give him a lot of props. I really do. I'm not at all trying to talk out of both sides of my mouth, but it takes a lot of fight. I mean, I think the Cowboys showed a lot of fight in this game against Cincinnati, but I think they also showed a lot of what are you doing, man? Why are you getting away from Rico Dowdle? Why are you letting these whoopsies happen to you over and over and over again? So I think that's just kind of the totality of it all. Mr. Landry says it started in the offseason with this ownership, and it's built into the draft with these coaches and no accountability. This is just a marketing team that happens to play football. It's hard to disagree with that. I mean, it really is. S. Master Flash says, are those Jerry's decisions or Mike's? I will say this to kind of close, and this is a bit conspiracy theorist, so if you want to put on a tinfoil hat, you're certainly welcome. Last week it was reported, and you got the Bleacher Report notification because they're the best in the business, that Zach Martin was going to be having season-ending surgery. You're aware of this. You know this. You understand this. Okay. So that news, Zach Martin, we all understand, we all agree, he's a Ring of Honor player, he's a Hall of Fame player. He is in the running for the greatest Dallas Cowboy of all time. I mean, he's not, but he's on a very short list of people that are in the conversation. He is arguably the best Dallas Cowboys draft pick in the Jerry Jones era. I mean, at least the Jerry Jones drought era, right? Like if we acknowledge that Troy Aikman and Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin wasn't a Jerry draft pick, but if we put all the 90s people in one, on one side of this and we put everybody else on another side, I think it's fair to say that Zach Martin is in the running for the very best of that mix. The primary contenders, if you're curious, would probably be DeMarcus Ware and Jason Witten. So that being said, this is an extraordinarily important person relative to Cowboys franchise history, Cowboys franchise lore. I see you, eMoney 804 says better than Larry Allen, definitely in the mix. I mean, my point, like this is the group that we're talking about. This is the group of player that Zach Martin belongs with. Okay, and I bring all that to say, I go incredibly long-winded to say all that because it's important to understand that players of that caliber get the Jerry Jones treatment. Players of that caliber, Jerry Jones tells us information about when he goes on 105 to the Fan. Players of that caliber are treated by Jerry Jones himself when it comes to news about them. Do any of you know off the top of your head, I'm going to tell you right now anyway, how the Zach Martin news came out? In a literal sense, in a technical sense, how that news was revealed to the public at large, to the world. It was not Jerry Jones in a 105 to the Fan interview. It was Mike McCarthy in a coach press conference. It was like, think. I know that this is stupid, that this is a thing, but I mean, this is the life that we've chosen. And so I'm here to help you examine it. It was not Jerry Jones who went on 105.3 The Fan, the flagship home station of the Cowboys, to say, this Zach Martin, he's been so special. I remember Steven and I fighting over Johnny Manziel and blah, blah. We did not get that diatribe from Jerry Jones. What we got was the football coach talking about the status of a football player relative to the football season. We got the normal thing. So again, I said this is tinfoil hat time. I kind of thought on some level under my tinfoil hat, that was a bit of an olive branch. That was a bit of you do get to stick around here, Mike. You do get to announce this thing about Zach Martin, because those are not the kind of things that somebody other than Jerry Jones gets to announce. That's all I'm here to say. So I wouldn't be mad if Mike McCarthy came back. I think that that's pretty obvious, but I do think that you got to move on at this point in time. I think that's pretty obvious. Let me say that I love you all. Sometimes tech issues happen. That's just kind of the way of the world. That's the way of technology, even in today's day and age where we understand how to communicate so easily and through so many different channels. So my most sincere thanks and gratitude to each and every single one of you in the live stream that put up with my idiocy early on, to be straight up. And thank you for hanging out. Thank you. Look, we will miss this. I promise you. There will be a day like in April, even like in the first round of the NBA playoffs, we'll miss this. We'll think back to that Monday night when Amani Oruwariye touched the punt and the Christmas light was on in the background and you were eating a snack or whatever the case may be. And it was just cool to watch the Cowboys with the whole world making fun of them. We will miss nights like these, and I will miss nights like these. And it's always the coolest thing in the world to me that there's somebody out there who wants to talk about my favorite team with me. And I'm appreciative that you were one of those people here tonight. So thank you to our live audience. Thank you to everybody else who's joining after the fact, watching after the fact, whether that's here in the Bleacher Report app or on the Blog on the Boys YouTube channel. Follow me here in the Bleacher Report app. You can see all my favorite team. Forks up, baby. Kenny Dillingham. We're taking the world by storm. And follow me on social media, Twitter, Instagram, Threads at RJ Ochoa, TikTok, RJ.Ochoa, Blue Sky, just search RJ Ochoa. If you want to email me, you can do so, rj.ochoa@sbnation.com. But for now, I bid you adieu. I bid you good night. And I hope you all have a wonderful rest of your evening. I will see you on Sunday after the Dallas Cowboys visit the Carolina Panthers here in the Bleacher Report app.